Okay, so today's video is going to be about it's 2018. It was a documentary called The Game Changers. And several people would ask me my opinion on this. By the way, we're trying a new lighting thing. So you'll see that I won't be writing much on the top part of the board because it is obscured by the light bulb. I am working on my lighting issues. For right now, this is what we got. So anyway, several people had asked me about this documentary called The Game Changers. And if you're not familiar with what this was or is, it was, I think it was about 2018. And it was a documentary extolling, if that's the right word, the benefits, the value of a plant-based, which is really just, we know people are annoyed with vegans, so we're going to call it plant-based, a plant-based diet. And someone had asked me to break this down and say what I thought about it. And there was something I'll put in the show notes. A guy named Layne Norton has already done this on an incredibly competent scientific level. I'm not going to do what Dan Quayle should have done. I am no Layne Norton. I get this, right? But I do offer interesting, funny, and different perspectives on these issues than maybe some of my more scientific friends. If I want to call those people, actually, I don't know who the hell I am, but whatever. And I'm thinking, all right, how am I going to break this thing down my way, my Shank Sinatra way? And then all of a sudden it got solved in like 30 seconds. Guy I know, his name's Coach Ben. Ha ha! He nailed it. He basically would have took me 45 minutes of ranting, and he summed it up in like 15 seconds. 15 seconds. He said, well, everybody has their dietary preferences. Now, just in full disclosure, which you'll see with The Game Changers is a tough thing to do, Coach Ben is a vegan. Right? He's not a vegan with an agenda, he's a vegan. But he said it perfectly. Everybody has their dietary, and everyone knows I don't know how to spell, so kiss my ass, preferences. This is very important. And we'll give it Ben 316. Like Stone Cold Steve Austin, all right? Ben 316. Everyone's got their dietary preferences. And I guess what bugged me about this documentary was instead of coming out and saying, hey, here's our dietary preferences and here's some of the benefits of it, they actually said that following a plant-based, aka vegans have a bad reputation, based diet, is not just something we prefer and could have some benefit for you. No, it's a game changer. Not a dietary preference, but a game changer. And what annoyed me about this was, not most things annoy me, what the hell am I picking on this movie for? But what really annoyed me about this was that there were actual game changers in the documentary. They completely glanced over because they were so fired up about getting you to follow their dietary preference, they totally ignored this stuff. And the first one, they add the actual real Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm not talking about like some knockoff or some comedian doing an impersonation. The former governor of California, the Matrix from Commando, little some Steve Bennett, did you promise to kill? What did he say? Hey, Sully, remember I promised to kill you last? That's right, Matrix, you did. I lied. Right, that Arnold Schwarzenegger. And he comes on there and he starts talking about his bodybuilding career, and at one time he was the greatest bodybuilder of all time, which he was, and a movie superstar. And he talked about how when he was a bodybuilder, he ate lots of meat. And now he's found out through the research that wasn't necessary. That he didn't need to eat all that meat to build all that muscle. Which was kind of odd to me because the only thing he knows is that he actually did eat that meat and build all that muscle. He doesn't really know how that data would apply to him. But that's neither here nor there. The one thing he left out, the actual game changer and not the weak-ass dietary preference that he left out, steroids. At no point, and I don't think this was for time purposes, does Arnold talk about steroids. Now, if there is a game changer out there, whether it's for you, me, or Arnold, it's steroids, right? Arnold would not be who he is today without steroids. Yeah, he's driven, he's focused, he's intelligent. A lot of people say he was actually a millionaire way before he became a bodybuilder and an actor. But there's no way that Joe Weider, getting a little industry here, would have brought him over from Europe if he weighed 180 pounds. It's just not happening. You're not going to try and sell people a bunch of mostly worthless supplements and protein powder, by the way, which wasn't vegan. Although maybe some of it was, but the most of it wasn't. It was mostly milk and egg stuff. With a guy who's barely larger than most normal people. So the fact that he got to America the way he did in the first place, no one's going to watch a movie called The Terminator with a guy who's slightly above average. That's not happening. So to glance over this, when it's an actual game changer in the movie, and it comes multiple times, you see multiple people who may or may not be on steroids. They don't really get into that. The actual game changer, to let you know how powerful steroids are. One time I was on this podcast, Lyle McDonald was talking about this research study, which I'll put in the show notes. These are going to be the biggest show notes of all time. And there's an actual research study, not this, based on actual science, in which they took 4 groups. 4, right? One group did nothing, it's real science, right? The other group took steroids and did nothing. The other group, 3rd group, lifted weights, and the 4th group lifted weights and took steroids. Now, you can see where this is going. The group that lifted weights and took steroids kicked everybody's ass. The group that didn't do anything really didn't do anything. They didn't get anything. They didn't build any muscle. Guess who was second, though? Distant second, but guess who was second to the group that took steroids and lifted weights? The group who took steroids and did nothing. They built more muscle than the people who lifted weights and didn't take steroids. Think about that for 1 second. Steroids are so awesome. You can build more muscle doing nothing than someone who lifts weights. That, my friends, is not a dietary preference. That is a game changer. So the second thing, they start talking about, the second built-in game changer they know address. They start talking about gladiators. And somehow there was some research done in one region of the world, some archaeology, whatever you want to call it, where they uncovered this gladiator pit. And they found that the gladiators, somehow they figured out they ate gruel for breakfast, which is just like this nasty like wheat breakfast mixture. It's like, I think it's like frosted mini wheats without the frosting. Not really, but you get the point. So they would eat gruel. So what they extrapolated from this, well, if these gladiators, who were these superstar athletes of the day, like they were like rock stars with like rock star warriors, like Steven Tyler with weapon skills. That's the way these guys were made out to be. If a plant-based diet is good enough for them, is good enough for their need to, I don't know, shove a sword through someone at point-blank range while listening to them gurgle and cry for their mother. I usually don't like using murder as a way to promote my dietary preferences, but all bets are off because this is the game changers, right? If a vegan diet, plant-based diet, is good enough to kill, then maybe we shouldn't associate it with hippies and losers and weak people. Which is odd because there's a game changer in there, but it's not what these guys have for breakfast. The game changer in here, and I am stealing this from a phenomenal amateur, although a very good historian, a guy named Dan Carlin. He has a podcast series called Hardcore History. It is not about the history of porn. It's about the extremes of the human, oh God, this is the word I'm having trouble with, experience. All right? Because this makes people do amazing, game-changing things. I'll give you a light example. I'll give you a hardcore example. I had a client once. This guy's a total untamed beast. One day he's doing some heavy lat pull-downs. And these two, and he's heterosexual, by the way. He's more heterosexual than a man I've ever met in my life. Whatever the hell that means. And these two gorgeous, total packages. Gorgeous, sexy, intelligent, polite, 26-year-old women sit next to us on the machine next to us. This guy's lat pull down, which was already really heavy, went up 30 pounds in 1 minute just by having these two women sit next to him. So that alone is a game changer. Beautiful woman, horn dog. Put them close to each other. That was a game changer for him. 30 pounds in 1 minute. It's pretty good gains with a Z. And that's just lat pull downs. A more brutal example of this was back, I think it was the 70s or 80s. There was a woman out in Arizona. Her son was working on his car. And one of the jacks gave out and was crushing him. So she ran out. Now, this was someone's mom. This wasn't Bev Francis or, I'm dating myself. You have no idea what I'm talking about. This wasn't Bev Francis or Corey Everson, again, dating myself, or Linda Murray. No one has any idea what I'm talking about. Well, some people do. This wasn't an elite level physique, sports strength athlete. All right? She went up and picked up a 2,000-pound car off her son until people ran in and threw the jacks back under the car. That is a perfect example of the extreme of the human experience and what it can do to the human body. Now, allegedly, she stress fractured every bone in her body, which is one of the downsides of the extremes of human experience. But I'll give you an example. If you send her to the Arnold Classic and put 2,000-pound barbell in front of her to set the deadlift world record, she ain't doing it. Why? Because that deadlift bar is not crushing her beloved son's chest. That's how much of a game changer the extremes of the human experience are. Now imagine you've got two people who are no choice in the matter, from what I understand. Slaves that you're saying fight to the death or die. Do you think that qualifies as an extreme of the human experience and will give you performances above and beyond whether they had bacon or eggs, fish or Chex for breakfast? Of course it's because it's an actual game changer. It's not a dietary preference. And the third one that I want to go over involved this other scene in the movie, documentary, in which they start featuring this guy who's an NFL football player. And they talk about how, he went on this plant-based diet and he played so much better and his teammates are doing it, yada, 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 and it's incredible. And they get so caught up in the fact that this NFL guy is on a plant-based diet. And I'm sitting there going to myself, that's not the game changer. The game changer here is if you're in the NFL, you're number 3. You're a freak of nature. Being a freak of nature, that's a game changer. Having incredible genetics is a game changer. Guys who play in the NFL are so elite on the spectrum of human performance that they literally, and I'm quoting this from Tom Platz. Tom Platz is one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time, had some of the most phenomenal leg development of all time. They could run up a hill and their legs would grow. They could squat a 100-pound barbell and their legs would go. They could squat a 200-pound barbell, their legs would go. They could squat a 300-pound barbell. All the way up front, their legs would grow. Why? Because they're freaks of nature. They are the genetically elite. And to make it even worse, there were like literally 3 game changers and 1 game changer, but they were so caught up in trying to get you to eat their dietary preference, they left this all out. Not only was this guy an NFL football player freak of nature, okay, so NFL, well, actually, it's going to come in again later. Not even playing the NFL. He's supported by a multi-billion-dollar corporation. He's a multi-millionaire himself. And how do I know that? Because they kept showing the documentaries, his house and his pool. So somehow, if you eat a plant-based diet, this could happen to you also. Like one of those Tom Vu real estate commercials at night. Come to his seminar, right? So not only is he an NFL level of freak of nature physically, he's supported by a multi-billion-dollar corporation run by a bunch of billionaires. He's a millionaire himself. He's got every social, economic, and societal support and pressure leading to his own extreme of the human experience. Oh, and by the way, his wife, I don't even know how to do this. I guess that's a chef hat. I don't know. His wife is a chef. Oh yeah, I'll put a spatula here. I don't know. Looks like he's playing tennis, actually. I'm awful. I'm awful at spelling and art. His wife's a chef. Now look, this one could go either way. You could go Brando style, get yourself a chef, and then eat creme brulee all day and weigh 400 pounds, right? So this one really is up to you. This is free will right here. But this, the genetics, the cash, and all right, having a chef, those are all game changers. When you're a multimillionaire and you're done doing whatever it is you do, you have options. Like what? On the opposite end, say you're busting your ass working 2 jobs a day, you're stressed out as hell, you have no money. It's not hard to believe that that person might want a triple cheeseburger to kind of soothe the day over. That's stupid. I shouldn't have gone there, but whatever. I'd say too much here. I shouldn't even said that cheeseburger thing. Whatever. That's it. These are all in the movie over and over and over again, and they never address it because they're too busy trying to push this. Now, what this might then lead you to wonder is, well, why do they make this movie in the first place then? If they're not going to deal with any of the actual game changers, what was the purpose of this thing in the first place? And I'll tell you. Well, I'll tell you what it wasn't. All right? I'll tell you what it wasn't. It wasn't because of science. All right? Because if the Game Changers was really about science, guess what, right? They would have had to do something that scientists have to do. And they would have had to disclose funding, right, and conflict of interest. Yeah, no science. Now, it so happens that it's the producer of it, a guy named James Cameron, you may know him from the movies The Terminator, Avatar, and Titanic, has tens of millions of dollars, is the producer of the movie, tens of millions of dollars invested in vegan protein companies. Arnold has millions of dollars apparently invested in a supplement company that at the time was making vegan protein, or a vegan protein option. That's not only a funding, that's a conflict of interest. If they were scientists, they'd have to disclose that. So definitely not science. If they did the thing on Arnold again, they'd have to talk about all the factors that made him a great bodybuilder. They'd have to do a research study where they had groups of bodybuilders. One who was on a vegan diet, one who was on a meat diet, one who had no dietary changes whatsoever, one who did all those things while taking steroids. To be able to tell if what Arnold said was true, that he really didn't eat all that meat to build that amount of muscle, and by the way, what about the steroids? That would have been part of the scientific process. If they did the Gladiator thing, they would have to bring a bunch of anthropologists and anthropologists and biologists, a bunch of ologists who have way more schooling than I do. They would have to bring them in, watch the documentary as it was shot, and then offer a bunch of countervailing opinions saying, look, wait, this is peer review. You took one arena of gladiatorial combat and you made these broad generalizations based on what you found there. You didn't look at all the arenas of gladiatorial combat. Maybe if you went up down into the Iberian Peninsula, you would have found, because of the closeness to the ocean, the gladiators ate something else. Maybe if you went up into the German hinterland, if that's even the right thing, I don't know, you would have found they ate something else, if that's what they had available. They didn't have trucks back then. It wasn't like they said, well, this gruel is the best possible thing anyone could eat. Let's ship it all over the empire. They had good roads, they didn't have trucks, right? So, you guys know how much I love my tea. So you would have had a bunch of different scientists looking at this thing and chopping it to bits, trying to see if what it says is legitimate scientifically. And as far as the NFL guy is concerned, you would have to take a look at a bunch of ads. Same thing as the bodybuilders with the meat. You'd have to not only discuss the funding and the conflict of interest financially, but you'd have to run these things through multiple sources of information to critically tear it apart to see if it holds water, like the defense's case in My Cousin Vinny, right? Even Miss Mona Lisa Vita, right, put more scientific rigor into her testimony as an automotive expert than the Game Changers did with like a multi-million-dollar budget. So it wasn't about science. What was it about? I'll tell you. It's about religion. People these days, to a great degree, lost their religion. the church attendance down there. It's not what it once was. And it's left a gap and a void for a lot of people. And so they need to replace it with something. And if you look at the tenets that are espoused in this documentary, I'm not talking about all vegans. Like I said, Coach Ben, that's an inside joke. I'm going to stop doing that. No one knows what the hell I'm doing. Coach Ben is a vegan. You never know it. He doesn't do this. But you watch this video over and over again. They keep talking about how you're going to save your body, your soul, and not just your society, but pretty much all the societies, the whole goddamn planet. Now let me ask you a question. What kind of organization that requires its members to sacrifice a certain degree of their individual self to be part of the collective group, that in return promises a pathway to save your body, your soul, and society? What could possibly have that game plan as part of its business model? I don't know. Maybe religion. I really shouldn't have done that stupid voice. That just took away from the whole video. Right? That was really dumb. But that's it. And like most people who practice religion for all the wrong reasons, people who would make these kind of documentaries, they have this weird kind of air about them. And it's the kind of air that they know better for you than you know for you. They know better for your kids than you know better for your kids. And it's just, you're so stupid and ignorant that you need them and their superior intellectual power to come rescue you. Right? You need them. And no matter what they have to do, no matter what tricks they pull, no matter how many documentaries they make about dietary preferences masquerading as game changers, it's all worth it. They have to do it. Why? The stakes are too damn high. This isn't about dietary preferences. This is about saving your body, your soul, and society. And when that's the game you're playing, then all bets are off. You can say whatever you want to say. You can do whatever you want to do. You can try to raise other people's kids, telling them things without their permission, under the guise of you know what you're doing and they don't. And there was a quote I read this afternoon. If you don't know, I'm taking it easy on this because it's going to get annoying with the religion, but the portion of the Jewish Bible that you're reading this week is a portion, it's in Hebrew, I'm not going to know, but it's about Sarah, which is Abraham's wife. And this is the portion where she passes away. And he has to buy a place to bury her. And so he goes to this place, Machpelah, and he goes to these guys, I think they're Hittites, and he says to them, I want to buy this cave to bury my wife in. And they say, oh, no, Abraham, you're our guy. We'll just give it to you. And Abraham's like, no way. And part of it, he didn't want to owe these guys something, right? So, hey, Abraham, can you take this package across the border of Canaan for me? No. The main thing he wanted to do was, everyone knew who Abraham was. Everyone knew Abraham Tom was a badass, right? Three major religions, two of the biggest in the world, are based on this guy. He was the real deal, right? He was the game changer of his time. And he didn't want to use, part of it was, he didn't want to use his power and influence to get something that was unduly given to him. And there's this book, Layne and Rosenblatt got me. It's a great book. It's called the Bedside Torah, if you ever want to read it. I don't know why you would read this, but I do. And there's a great quote in here that I think sums up the problem with all of the anti-Coach Ben of all of this. And I just want to read it to you. So it's on page 34, and they're discussing why Abraham, despite the fact that he is who he is, pays for this property. One of the reasons. And, basically this is a guy who could call on God for a favor and blow the Hittites up and take whatever he wanted. In the story. Look, I'm not going to get into whether he's schizophrenic or not. That's neither here nor there. But here's the quote from this book, The Bedside Torah. Why indeed? Aren't there people today who claim an exclusive possession of the truth, who insist that their monopoly on morality or compassion or divine will allows them to slander, to slight, to distort, or to oppress? From the liberal chic to the conservative smug, all over the world, self-appointed spokespeople of the correct view trumpet their own infallibility and moral superiority. Obviously, I'm incapable of saying it better than that. In conclusion, how long was this? Wow, only 25 minutes. I've been doing this personal training thing a long time. And I've seen people lose weight, look great, feel great on every possible dietary iteration you could imagine. No one diet holds the best diet or the worst diet. I've seen people who get healthy on vegan diets. I've seen people who look like crap on vegan diets. I one time met a woman, her hair looked like the scarecrow from Wizard of Oz, and her skin looked like Ashy Larry. If you know Ashy Larry, I'll put him in the show notes too. But this woman wasn't Ashy Larry. She was this privileged the Caucasian woman from Princeton. And she's like, oh, the vegan diet has been so amazing for me. I'm doing so awesome. And when I last knew her, she was about like 20, 30 pounds heavier. But had this gorgeous, healthy, shiny hair and this beautiful, smooth skin. I mean, she was not, I guess, she wasn't Rubenesque. She was beautiful. And now she was skinny. Oh, that's everything. And she just looked awful. So I'm spitting. I'm so excited here. Right? So I've seen both ends of that. Coach Ben, don't take us wrong. Coach Ben's a beast. Coach Ben's a stud. Right? And he's a vegan. Right? And I've seen people who eat meat who have their hearts explode out of their chest. And I've seen people who eat meat and are healthy and do really well. That's because the actual game changer is finding out what's your dietary preferences and figuring out a way to make them work towards your goal. And if your goal is to lose weight and be healthy, there are many routes to that. There is no one way to do it. There is no conservative. What did they say? It was liberal chic and let me get that back. I knew I should have dog-eared this. Oh, here it is. There's no liberal chic and conservative smug at work here. Every diet, if it's the right diet for you, look, diets have features. People have strengths and weaknesses. And your ability to match a diet up to your strengths and weaknesses based on its features or take and grab whatever you want out of a diet, series of diets, that's what the actual game changer is. Again, this has nothing to do with you. This has to do with the quote from the book. That's it. That's all I have to say. Next week, we are going to be, like a lot of requests to do a video about how to do chin-ups, how to get better at chin-ups, so we'll cover that. Week after that, I got a bunch of requests. People ask me how to get better at push-ups, so we'll cover that. That's it. This video is actually less than 30 minutes. Oh my God, I'm one day I aspire to be Coach Ben and be able to do these videos in 30 seconds, but don't hold your breath. That's it. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.